Hey, yo.
If I can be serious for a minute.
Oh, yeah. Acknowledge me. What's going on, everybody? Welcome. Come on in, sit down. Episode number 126 of the Sit Down Marks podcast. What's going on, everybody? Come on in, sit down. I got an extra special guest with me today. It's just me today. No boys other than myself. It's just me and my guest today, but you guys are going to be really interested in what we're going to be talking about today. Today's guest is the owner of Top Rope Baking. She sells wrestling-inspired baking treats at independent wrestling shows all across the Midwest, and she's about to take over the world with this thing. So here she comes. She's got a really cool original product, and we're going to talk about that a lot here today. So please welcome my friend, Tori. What's going on? How are you today?
Hey, TV. I'm good. How are you?
Very, very good. Thank you for finally coming on the podcast. I think I've known you basically since we started this thing pretty close to about 3 years now. Does that sound right?
You guys were on like episode 25 or 26 when we first met you.
That sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right. So life is busy. Life is good. How's everything in your world while your cat slowly attacks the stream in the back? I love it.
Life is great. Yes. I'm a cat lady. You're going to see one of them in the back.
Totally cool.
Life is good. Getting excited for summer and getting excited for lots of shows coming up. So
right.
Very excited about that. Not excited about the heat in the kitchen, but got to bring the heat to the kitchen, I guess, for the summer.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're going to talk about that because I guess, as seasonal wrestling, certain promotions shift to the outdoors, that kind of changes up the way possibly that you book yourself maybe and that kind of stuff. We'll get into that later on down the line. But Tori, let's jump into it. Obviously, you sell wrestling inspired treats, so the wrestling fandom, had to come first at some point. Like, tell me your first memory of seeing somebody in a ring. Like, where did it start?
Yeah, I don't actually remember having like a first situation where I saw wrestling. I just always remember being really into it. I always make a joke that like my dad got me into wrestling and then forgot that he got me into wrestling. But I remember I was the only girl on the block. Really rural, so there were only like 6 neighbors, and then we had some farmers who would be there during the season, and their kids would play with us, and we would always practice wrestling moves on the trampoline. And a lot of them came from Puerto Rico, and so their parents would bring with them Puerto Rican tapes, and that's how I kind of grew to love Puerto Rican wrestling. People always like, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is Bruiser Brody, but he died before I was even born. But the reason I know about him is from tape trading.
Sure.
But we always joke, like, my dad got me into it. We used to always practice on the trampoline when my mom was working, and my dad was hanging out with us, and he would make fish sticks, and my brother and I would be practicing wrestling moves on the trampoline. Can you smell what Dad got cooking? And we'd run in the house, and we would get our fish sticks and our orange pop and watch wrestling. And then after wrestling was over, before Mom got home from work, we would jump on the trampoline, and we always practiced our dead man's drop. I don't know. So I don't really have like an origin story of wrestling.
Sure.
Kind of I grew up with it. I was always that kid who like wore my Stone Cold shirt. Had some friends who liked wrestling in high school, and then in college I kind of found my people who were much richer than I was and could afford pay-per-views, and kind of stuck with it. And then through all of school and whatnot, and then afterward started going to indie shows, especially when I moved back to this area.
Yeah. Cool. Well, no real like like I said, I can relate watching, Bruiser Brody. I like to tell the story of that's how I saw ECW like for the first time. Like, I thought it was real as fuck. You know what I mean? I was like, this is awesome, right? And then, so saw Bruiser, somewhere along that way too. I think Dad, it's funny. Like it would they would let me watch ECW with him, but I couldn't watch Bruiser matches, because Bruiser was like on another level, I guess, but But eventually I saw Bruiser and obviously fell in love with him too. He's in my top 5. But yeah, that's cool. So there's where the the love started. So so you're based out of Northwest Indiana, let's call it. You're is that where is that where you saw your first indie show, around that area?
I actually didn't see an indie show until I was 19.
Okay.
The first indie show I saw, I was in college, and I was randomly in Indianapolis. I don't even remember why. I might not have been 19. It might have been a little later. But I went to an indie show just randomly, and Nate Webb was on the show. He revitalized my love for revitalized my love for wrestling, because it was during college, definitely. And,
Teenage dirtbag, real GN, didn't it?
Right. Like, you're in college, you're just kind of like, I like wrestling, but I'm not going to watch it weekly. I don't have time for that. I'd rather be at a frat party sort of thing than watching SmackDown. And then I went to that, and it was like the next couple weeks were like, I need to get my hands on all of this. And I didn't have internet growing up, so I didn't get to like Google anything,
Right.
So I remember going back to like my apartment and just Googling all this wrestling and just enjoying it. And then, yeah, that kind of got me back in. But that was my first show, was in Indianapolis, and Nate Webb was on the show. Don't know what show it was. And then when I moved back to the area, during law school, there was a indie company in Valparaiso called ARW. They run a station, and Colt Cabana was on it. So I was like, well, I gotta go to this. It was $10. It was at the Inman's Bowling Alley, where I used to be in a bowling league and practice for roller derby. Colt Cabana was on it. So $10 and a pitcher of beer was $5. So nice. Then I was good to go. And that was my first indie show in the area.
Nice. Well, that's cool. So, all right. So there's where the wrestling started. Okay. And then, do you love baking? Do you love cooking? Do you have a passion for it? Has this, reinvented maybe something inside of you? Like, where did this cooking start, like a long time ago? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I grew up kind of in a blended household. We lived with my grandparents, and my grandma was a big baker. And we always, like, every day we'd get off the bus and we would bake something together. And it was kind of just one of those things that we always did. So I always took, I guess I took for granted that not everybody did that. Mm-hmm. And then as I got a little bit older, my mom and my brother and I moved out, and my mom decided she was going to take that over. And I love my mom to death, but the woman cannot bake for her life. Like, turn on the broil to make brownies, and they will get burnt and also completely raw at the same time. I don't really understand how she does it. So I just kind of became the person that baked. And then when I was in high school, I was always the person, whenever we had a bake sale, I would make 19 things to somebody. I was a cheerleader, all that crazy stuff. And then whenever I was stressed, I would bake. So during finals, people would come, they would find me in the library, and they'd just take goods, and they'd be like, "Oh, Tori was stress baking." So it's always kind of been my thing to do, whatever. And then when I was first started my shoot job, I work with a lot of guys because I work in logistics, and I would kind of be like, how about if you help me, I'll make you sweet treats. And one of the guys finally was like, you should make this into a business. And so that's kind of where Top Rope Baking was formed. I really crappy logo on paint while I was working one day. And started doing the treats, and honestly I started selling them. The last time I did the Komen breast cancer walk, I would sell them to my coworkers for them to give me donations. And that's kind of how Top Rope Baking actually started, was selling treats for a fundraiser.
Oh, super cool. Cool. So, I mean, obviously I knew the baking all came before, before Top Rope, but that's super cool. So did this start before wrestling came into it then? The business wise?
Yeah. So, I was just selling a little bit. I had broke my neck playing roller derby.
Oh, you never told me that before. Really?
Yeah. That's why.
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's serious.
Yeah, it sucked.
I imagine.
But part of my occupational therapy was learning how to reuse my hand with my ulnar nerve pinched. And I couldn't sleep because of the pain and then some of the pain meds that I was on. And I would watch cookie decorating videos all night. And I brought it up to my occupational therapist and they were like, why don't you try that? And so I bought like $30 worth of supplies, like the crappiest supplies you could find on Amazon to start out. And
Yeah.
I'm really artistic and I'm good at baking. So I was like, let's try this out. And I made some cookies. The first cookies I ever made are so bad. I have a picture of them. They're stars with lines through them. But like, I was super proud because I had made them, you know, honestly, like during occupational therapy. So that kind of started it. And then as I started to get the feeling back in my hand and was able to use it more, I started getting better. And I was like, well, if I can do this, you know, with a half bum arm, I could probably do this. So I started watching more videos and learning more and investing a little bit more, and then kind of turned it into a little bit of a business, but I was still new at work, in the process of buying a house and all of that. So it kind of wasn't as big of a deal, but that's definitely how I got started.
Right. Okay. So, you know, was there like an aha moment, you know, when you're like, you're going to these wrestling shows, you know, independent shows, you know, you're somehow starting to, you know, kind of mix these two together, you know, and so what got you to, you know, there, and when you decided, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna start selling these now?
Yeah. So I'd been doing it for a while and then COVID hit. And there's this really amazing, she's also a baker. She's an artist. Her name is Marge. She sells like her Etsy stuff at marge.jpg. If you ever see my water bottle that I live with,
Yes.
a bunch of her stickers on it. She's
Yep.
amazing. Also a baker, and she's based out of Virginia. And she does this thing every October. And then I think one also for WrestleMania, and it's like, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's got a cute punny name, and you draw something every day up to WrestleMania, and she gives you a prompt. So I was like, it's COVID. I don't have anything to do. I live home, my work home, like I'm not leaving the house. Let's make some cookies. So I started making cookies for that. And then eventually, like once you know, we were able to go to shows and stuff again, I made friends with Axel, Rico, and Hartenbauer. And, you know, there's always
Big Midwest independent wrestlers for anybody
yeah.
outside the Midwest. Those two guys.
And I always kind of thought of that thing when you hear all the time, like, ice cream Christmas and wrestling. And I was like, that sucks that it's only for these big guys. Like, everybody makes stuff of like the logos of the big guys, but nobody ever makes it for Midwest wrestlers, you know? And they're my friends, and it's COVID, and like, you know, that maybe wrestling isn't their only job, but like they're really trying to make it. So I was like, doesn't hurt to try and make these. So the first independent wrestler that I ever made cookies for was Mike Hartenbauer.
Yeah.
And they were terrible, but he loved them. And oh my God. Also, his logo is really hard. Like, even if I were to do them now, they're still not the greatest ones that I make because his logo is just very hard to do.
Right.
But it, like, the amount of happiness that they had was so cool. Like, seeing both of them genuinely excited to have this thing that I made for them, and like,
right.
you know, reach out to everybody else. It was super cool.
Right. And it was COVID too, so we were putting everything in packages. You know what I mean? Like, it was, you know, we're, you know, afraid of germs and all that stuff, which, you know what I mean? So it kind of fell along those, you know,
Yeah.
in line with the timing. And so yeah, so you made it for Hartenbauer, you know, which, you know, we're big fans of, love that guy, deserves a contract somewhere.
Absolutely.
You know, going to get it. So he's one of the, you know, first guys, which is a good one because, you know, wrestles in a lot of different places, active on social media, you know, the pictures got posted, you know, and so now we're kind of off to the races, right? Like, so now we're off and running. What happens next?
So to kind of go back a little bit, like 2018, 2019, Mick Foley was at Pro Wrestling Tees, and my boyfriend at the time had bought me a ticket to meet him at Pro Wrestling Tees for Valentine's Day. So the day rolled around, and it was kind of like right when I had started, and I made him cookies, just like a big cookie and a Mankind cookie, because Mankind is my favorite of his versions.
Yeah.
And I gave them to him, and there's a video that I post every year on Mick Foley Day.
Yeah.
And it's
the happiest I've ever seen you in my life, I think. Like, honestly, I can say that.
And to set the scene, like, it was sleeting outside, and he had gotten there late because his plane got, like, pushed back, whatever. So I stood outside in the sleet for 3 hours, and all I could do was, like, keep the poncho that they gave me wrapped around the cookies because I didn't want them to get wet. So I look like a wet dog, but it doesn't matter. I was so happy. He was so nice. He compared me to Dolly Parton because he could tell I put love into everything I baked. So it was amazing. Then fast forward to after I made the cookies for Hartenbauer and Axel Rico, Mick Foley was doing a comedy show at a local art center by me. And I was like, obviously I'm getting tickets. I went by myself, and I made him cookies, and I made him cookies of all of the faces of Foley, the smiley faces, but with like all the different, accoutrement.
Right.
And I gave them to him, and he said to me, "Did you make me cookies at Pro Wrestling Tees a couple of years ago?" And I was like, "Oh my God, yeah."
Nice. He remembered.
He was like, "You have gotten so much better." And you can see the picture. I post it again every year on Mick Foley Day. My face just as happy. Again, the two biggest smiles you have ever seen on my face were those two moments. And he was like, "Make sure you give my camera guy, like, we're in a hurry. They had to get going." But he was like, "Make sure you give my camera guy your social media information because I want to tag you." And I Twitter at the time because I'm slow to the punches, whatever. So I thought nothing of it. And then a couple days later, I got I can't remember if it was a call or an email, probably an email from Steve from, it used to be Warrior Wrestling. And he was like, "Hey, did you make those cookies that Mick Foley tagged on Twitter?" And I was like, "I don't have Twitter, but I did make Mick Foley cookies." And he's like, "Hey, yeah, so we're having a show this weekend, and we're having Bret Hart, and he would love to have your cookies. Any chance you could have a booth there?" And I was like, there's no way I could do a booth by then. So I was like, "What if I just make you some cookies?" And he's like, "What if we buy them from you, and then we'll see how it goes, whatever." So they bought like 4 dozen cookies from me. Bret Hart was on the show, so I made a ton of Bret Hart cookies.
Right.
Thunder Rosa cookies. And I actually went to go drop them off, and maybe somebody didn't show up. I can't 100% remember what the backstory of it was, but I ended up being like, "I'm helpful. Could I help you sell your merch?" And they were like, "Yes, absolutely. Perfect. That would be great." So I sold merch and the cookies that I had made. And then like the next day I got an email from Steve, like, "We would really like for you to be a vendor. Could you be a vendor at our next event? It's in Tinley in December." So I kind of figured it out. My mom went with me to help me. She loves Sam Adonis because of it. Calls him that sweet boy.
Perfect.
And that's kind of where it started. And then I just did Warrior shows for a little while. And then I went to a BLP show and took me and Tyler like a basket of BLP cookies. And then they were like, "Yeah, come on, like next show."
Was that in Crown Point?
Yeah, that was when it was at RDS. So I was and traveling a bit with Warrior. And then making cookies for like all the shows I was going to. Even if I wasn't on them, I would make a couple of wrestler cookies just to like kind of give to people. I went to a lot of wrestling shows by myself. So it was kind of one of those things where I would be like, "I have pocket cookies if you're friendly to me. Like, talk to me in line and I'll give you a pocket cookie," whatever. And people would come up to me, they'd see my vest, and they'd like, "Got any pocket cookies?" And then I made friends that way.
That's dope as fuck though, Tori. That's like an underground way of like getting your business and name out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, giving everybody a taste of it before you're gonna sell it to them. You know what I mean? Like, that sounds great. It's awesome.
Yeah. So that's how I started. And then I met you and AJ at a Zawa show. My friend Becky and I went, and there were these two who were like standing there staring at us, and Begging her, like, who the hell are these dudes? And then you were like, hey, cookie lady. And I was like, hi, whatever.
Yeah. But
and we've been friends ever since.
Right. But backstory though, we used to sit on the stage together a lot at AAW. You went a lot more than I did. I would try to go as much as I could at the time, but we would sit on stage with you, so we would see you a lot at shows. And then like at AAW, and then like so it was like when we seen you guys at Zawa, we're like, oh hey, and then but by that time you had already started doing that, so I knew who you were that way, and also from sitting on the stage at Bourbon Street for AEW. So yeah, so that was cool. Yeah, so that's been it's over like 3 years now. But all right, so we're off to the races. We're you're going to events, being vendors, you're selling wrestling inspired treats now. Tell the world, like, it's not just cookies. It's, it's branched out to other things now, and you put decorations on them and you name them after, so, explain, like, that's probably like the fun part of your job, probably getting to come up with the name of some of these cookies, and, they're, like, so, but, yeah, so just like, talk about like all the different treats that you have.
Yeah, so I started off obviously with decorated cookies with like the wrestlers' logos and stuff on them, and then I branched out a little bit. Crumbles started to be a big thing kind of in my area. So I reached out to our local health department to figure out how I could do it legally.
Sure.
And everything had to be on the inside. And I was like, well, that's kind of fun. That's like stuff. Like you can be outside, but then it's got a filling, and like who doesn't love a surprise?
Right.
First one I actually came up with was Oreo Truff Bagwell, which is a chocolate chip cookie stuffed with an Oreo truffle. Mm-hmm. Buff Bagwell himself enjoys them. And I
can confirm.
I have a picture of it, and it's excellent, and I'm cheesing very hard. But I have a whole slew of, I think the last time I made all of them, I had 17 different kinds of stuffed cookies, ranging from chocolate to fruit, anything in between. And then I branched out and make, they're called undercakers, and cake cup, because I'm super type A and I don't want to make a mess of a facility. So it's a slice of cake inside of a cup. I make cinnamon rolls, Rapungi Vice crispy treats, which are treats. Bars, your wife's favorite is the butterscotchy too hottie.
Yep. She's you didn't have those at the last show, I don't think, did you, right?
I don't know. I don't know. Sure. But Lindsay was there, so it's all right.
Yeah. So I kind of got a lecture and I didn't bring any of those home. I was like, did I just overlook those? But so, yeah. And so the Al Snowball. Okay. So you got, that's the name of one of your treats. And you recently met Al. Al got to see his own cookie. Like talk about your interactions with Al.
Yeah, I was at Squared Circle Expo, and I have a Al Snowball cookie. It's like a Hostess Snowball. Obviously, the puns are my favorite, so it's called Al Snowball. Mm-hmm. And Al Snow comes walking towards my table about halfway through the first day, and we've all heard stories about Al Snow, and so I was concerned, like started sweating very much, like in my head what's going to happen. And he comes up to me and he goes in his Al Snow gruff voice, heard you have a cookie named after me. And I was like, yes, Mr. Snow, because of course, would you like your cookie? And he was like, that's pretty cool. And I was like, oh my god, okay, this is gonna be a good interaction. So he takes it, he's looking at it, he's looking at my table, and I said, could I take a picture of you with your cookie for my Facebook page? It will help me with marketing. And he was like, absolutely. So he smiles, takes a picture of the cookie, and then he looks at me and he goes, could I take a picture of you with all of your creations? And I was like, sure. I've never had anybody ask me that before. And so he did, and then he walks away, and I can see him opening it when he goes. He's like in a little corner area, so I can't see him. And then a couple of OVW people come up, and they're like, hey, Al Snow said you have really good cookies. And I was like, oh, good, I'm so glad. And so they bought a bunch, and then Al Snow comes trudging back, and he's like, I gotta buy more of these cookies.
No shit, that's awesome.
And then he walks back, and then he comes back, and he's like, I showed them to my wife, and now I got to get more for her because these aren't going to last. Goes back, and then it comes back the next day. He was my best customer the entire expo. It was great. He was
super cool.
He was like, oh, he was telling me like, oh, I like him a lot. I should have one of his cookies. He came up and like, I think he bought like 15 cookies from me at one point, was telling me like, I like this guy. I don't know if I like this guy, but this sounds good, sort of thing. Great. It was so fun.
Right. And that's what's fun as a customer, because you can come up, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've never really been a big, Billy Gunn fan. He's kind of like been all right to me, but the Billy Gunn Fetty is my favorite cookie. And, and so, you're kind of like, it's funny. It's like, oh man, this is the best cookie ever, but it's Billy Gunn. So it's kind of fun little, spin twist on, on treats. Yes, and you're talking about my wife's cookies too. She wants me to buy extra of those now, like we talked about, because as soon as I come home with them, you turned her on to putting these in the freezer and then having them with coffee in the morning, and that's like her thing. So like she's, totally into it. And so, all right. So, yeah. So have you had any bad reactions from wrestlers? Anybody that's kind of like, like, you don't have to say names, but, I would figure everybody be pretty cool. I mean, it's basically promotion for them.
There's one wrestler that specifically does not enjoy one of the ingredients in the of the thing, but his name works perfectly for it.
Okay.
Colt Cabana doesn't like bananas. Never been rude about it or anything. He's just like, oh man, I don't even like bananas. I can't even eat my own treat. So, but other than that, no, I get a lot from like older wrestlers, especially like at Dreamwave, who are like, well, where's mine? Sort of thing. My Brooklyn Brawler has the Brookie Brawler, and Scotty Too Howdy has the Butter Scotty Too Howdy now.
Right.
So I was like, well, I have to come up with names for them because they were kind about it. Right. But then some people who were like, well, why don't I have one? And I'm like, I could never come up with a pun off your name. I am so sorry, but that is not going to happen.
Right.
And you're like, oh yeah. Or I do get a lot of wrestlers, like current wrestlers, and my thing is always you have to be retired or like very old for me to come up with a name for you, with the exception of Colt Cabana, because it worked so perfect. Most of them are either past or very, very retired, because I do not want to get hit with a cease and desist.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so since you brought it up, let's talk about Dreamwave for a minute. Okay, so since Dreamwave's come back, me and you both kind of started, jumping on board. I was trying to get, my podcast banners up. We're trying to get you into to be able to sell your stuff. Fast forward, we're all in now, baby. You know what I mean? Like we're like full blown, like we're employees, right? Right. What's that?
We're Dreamwave family.
We are. We definitely are. And so, so being a part of that has kind of opened the door for you to be able to, we'd be able to talk to these legends and rub elbows with these people that you made these cookies for. So that kind of brought it kind of like to another level for you. Like you talked about, like, Buff Bagwell, that was your first cookie. Mm-hmm. We seen him a couple shows ago, and like, that's got to be pretty surreal for you, right? Because your first cookie, here he is. He's super pumped about it. He's got all cookies. We're taking pictures. We're talking. It's got to be a little bit of a like, holy shit moment. Like,
oh my gosh,
a little full circle there, right?
So cool. It's been really amazing. Because I didn't really get to go to wrestling as a kid, I kind of missed out on, like, some people will be like, oh, I met this person before they were big, whatever. And I've never had one of those. And so it's been cool to meet some of the guys. Like, I was a big WCW and ECW person. We didn't get the channel that WWF was on, I guess. So I didn't even know that really existed till I was in high school.
Yeah.
And so, like, seeing some of the guys are like, I was talking to the Nasty Boys and they were like, well, where are you from? And I told them Hammond.
Yeah.
We're like, dude, the Hammond Civic Center was always one of our favorite places to run. They were telling me stories. I used to play roller derby there. We were talking about the locker rooms because, like, we were in the same locker rooms. It was the coolest thing to have experience with the Nasty Boys.
Right.
And then, like, Meg and I'll sit down there, Meg from Dreamwave, and talked to the legends after like the doors have closed a little bit, and we've like had great conversations with Jimmy Hart, like just these weird interactions that you would have, and Dreamwave has brought that for us. It's the coolest, and getting to meet all these people who I never thought I would meet, or like, you know, I would meet maybe having an interaction at some sort of con or something like that, but not the like we're in the same boat kind of situation where they're really willing to talk to you and interact, and it's been really, really cool.
Yeah. Like, you know, I mean, we have to kind of pinch ourselves sometimes because we're back here in this little meet and greet room, you know, feet away sometimes from Bret Hart, Ricky Morton, tons of people like that, you know, and the legends when they come on, and you know, we're with a lot of the top tier talent on the verge of being signed, you know, like, you know, so, you know, it's got to be, you know, the cool to be able to, you know, to expand your business, you know, by showing these, you know, legends and, you know, and the people on the Midwest scene and at these shows, you know, that, you know, you're helping supporting them too, like, you know, in this way. So that's always kind of cool. So,
Well,
I'm
too,
sorry.
To that point too, like between Dreamwave and like Iron Spirit, everyone there is like at both shows are so incredibly kind and like always tell me like, oh my god, this is my favorite cookie, or they'll come up and be like, I tried this one last time and you were right, it's great. And a couple of years ago, Mikey from BLP was running a show at Squared Circle like he always does, and he was like, would you want to come and help, whatever. And I bailed because I was like, there's no way that anybody's gonna like that, whatever. But because of Dreamwave and Iron Spirit and everybody being so positive and lovely, I this year had the courage to do Squared Circle and ended up selling out, like making all these cool connections. I was next to Jushin Thunder Liger. Like, Sunny came over and went, oh no, these look good. I was like, oh god.
Right.
That would never happen if it weren't for these great shows, the the amazing fans who like kind of boost your confidence. And heck, like Logan from Iron Spirit and Jay from Dreamwave taking a chance on me and letting me be a part of the family, letting me be a part of the show peripherally. Like, that's amazing, and it's incredibly kind, and I'm so lucky.
Right. Well, it's, you know, like, you know, you could call it a vendor, you know, I mean, like, you know, that's like the old school name for it, you know what I mean? But, you know, nowadays, you know, having somebody like you on our show, it enhances the experience for, you know, for our customer, whether it's at Dreamwave, whether it's at, you know, it's an extra, you know, it's an extra thing for them to look forward to because they've had your cookies before, you know, they're going to come back, they're probably going to buy something they've already had before, try something new. Try the Razor Lemon. Like, I'm probably kind of hooked on that one a little bit, and I'm a Razor fan too, so I'm like double gimmicked on it. So, but it's, you know, you enhance the experience, you know what I mean, and you know, it's, you know, like I'm not shitting you when I say this, because, you know, when I'm doing when I talk about this at Iron Spirit Pro before. You know, it's like as soon as we announce a match, you know, if they weren't there before to see if you were there or not, you know, it's like one of the first questions, like, oh, is Top Rope Bacon going to be there? Is Tori selling cookies at the show? You know, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, you're a little bit in demand, you know, so that's good, right? Have you gotten to the point where, you know, I know sometimes, you know, just to say business is good, you know, if you got to, you know, work around dates from multiple people that, you know, want you on their shows, you know, like, you know, that's got to be a good thing, right? So how many promotions are you actually working for right now?
I work with Iron Spirit, Dreamwave, 01. I know there's more, and I'm a
Warrior
is kind of disbanded now.
Okay.
BLP.
Okay.
I did a show with Brave Wrestling in Michigan City 2 or 3 weekends ago.
Right.
I've done a couple shows with Naptown in Indianapolis.
Right.
I'm like, I'm going to do a show with the Heated Shenanigans guys, charity show in June. I'm working with Third Coast. show is June 22nd, I believe.
That's 3CW. Is that what they call it? Yeah, yeah.
That's all I think for now, but I've been trying to, I stick mostly to the Midwest. My shoot job here, so it is harder for me to get away for like several days, but I've been talking to some people in Ohio, like,
Yeah.
why not? Like, let's
Right.
shows in one weekend and I'll load up the car and call Sean if you want to go.
Right. It's good to expand, because you go to Ohio and somebody's going to want you to go to Pennsylvania.
Right.
And then somebody's going to want you to go to New Jersey, you know what I mean? Or West, somebody's going to want you, you know what I mean? So, it's branching out is good. Like, yeah.
Lucky that my shoot job is super understanding and very supportive. So whenever I'm like, hey, I'm going to take off an hour early to get to this show, they're like, why are you even here anymore? Just leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. So tell the people, outside of cookies, we'll talk about all your, wrestling inspired cookies. We'll talk about all your social medias and stuff later, but you've been posting a lot of stuff lately about, you're making cookies for like baseball teams with the kids' names on them. You do, all holiday, like basically anything, everything, like, so, but like kind of like what's your specialty outside of the, no wrestling, put all rest aside, like everything else, like, what do you like to do the most?
My sister said that I'm like the perfect PTA mom without kids. So whenever she needs cookies for any of her 5 kids, she calls me. Normally like a day and a half notice, but she's my sister, so she gets special treatment. I really like doing outside the box things. Right now I'm doing actually after we get off this call, I'll be working on a lady who's a super cat fanatic, but she's having a baby, so she's having a cat themed baby shower. Like stuff like doing, flowers for baby showers is fine, but if you have a fun theme that like is totally off the wall, that's kind of my thing. I'm artistic. Doing something over and over and over again, that's fine. That pays the bills, but
sure.
Fun, like that really stretches my artistic abilities is even better.
Right.
And then like to go with the whole pet thing, I'm really big in the local humane society. So I do a lot of stuff for them, and I'm always into making anything pet themed. Like,
right.
Done a couple for when people adopt pets. That's been really cool, like pet birthdays or pet gotcha days.
Oh, sure.
Those are always like near and dear to my heart, just because that's kind of my thing. Obviously, see a cat or two hanging out in the back here.
Yeah, for sure. I think Bruiser was making a run in on the bark earlier, wasn't he?
Tried to shut the door.
Oh, I love it. So, so do you ship? You ship any orders anywhere?
Yeah, I do ship. Shipping is a little bit of a pain.
Okay.
I'm willing to do it though. I just let people know that their order is going to be a little bit delayed because of shipping. I do local pickups in Hammond and Lowell if you're in the Northwest Indiana area, or at your local wrestling show. I've had a couple people actually pick up cookies from me at Iron Spirit Pro for birthdays and whatnot.
Perfect. Yeah.
But yeah, if you want it, I can make it. I can make it happen with a little bit of notice. And I actually have started to dive into a little bit of corporate orders. I'm doing an order of 500 cookies for a nonprofit coming up here soon. So Colin and Grandpa and Becky to help me, bag them after I've decorated them and whatnot. So that'll be good. And then I guess the other thing, I do a bunch of them for like Bird Show, which is coming up. So I've got a lot of stuff coming up with that. But like you said, the softball and baseball ones I'm doing orders for right now, and soccer as well. Yeah.
So we talked about earlier, seasonal, so as the weather changes and it gets hot, you tell me it's kind of hard on some of your cookies to stay pretty and put together. So, but you do like, I know you do like bird festivals and stuff in the summer. You're going to try to come down to Normal in August for our big sweet corn circus there. So you kind of, shift the menu, I guess, so to speak, right? Like of what you sell.
Yeah. So Birdfest is at the beginning of May. So we don't really have a huge issue with, temperature. It's also in a huge like marquee type of situation tent, and they do a good job of keeping it cool in there because it's kind of people's what Birdfest is it's a huge birding festival in the dunes. So the migration marketplace is what they call it. I'm not really a bird person. There was a park ranger who's really into wrestling and saw me and invited me to this bird show, and I've been doing it for 3 years now. But that's not as big of a deal. But during the summer, a lot of the treats they just kind of melt and become glue. Lack of a better word. So I don't do very many outdoor shows.
Yeah.
I'll start doing them again like the end of August-ish. The Sweet Corn Festival, they require that you have a tent, which does a lot. As long as you're not facing the sun or you can position yourself to not be facing the sun, that's helpful. A lot of the times when wrestling is outside, it's on concrete, which I totally get.
Yeah.
But,
This one's no different. They put you on the street.
That's baking. So,
yeah.
The baked goods are baking some more. And like I said, become kind of just like a hot mess of glue. So I don't do a ton of stuff during the summer outdoors, which honestly is kind of nice. I have a super old house and my air conditioning doesn't work great in my kitchen. So take a little bit of a break.
Yeah. All right. That sounds good. I guess you can't, kind of you shift you around because, like, with Iron Spirit Pro, it's like once, we're about to do this show, May the 11th. We'll talk about that in a second. And then after that, it's off to the races and festivals, baseball parks. We have our biggest show of the year is going to be July 20th this year in Bloomington. But, yeah, so the schedule always kind of changes, and it comes with different problems. Like you go from not even worrying about weather to now you got to worry about it raining outside. So different stuff. But yeah. So but plug real quick if anybody wants to buy anything from Tori, how can they order online other than your socials, obviously?
The best way, honestly, is to email me, topropebaking@gmail. I am constantly on my computer during work hours. Don't tell my boss. So I can respond to that. I don't check my social media except for at night. So, I'm better at responding to emails. That's the best way. But, hitting me up on socials also works. Just if I don't get back to you within a couple days, hit me up again.
All right, we'll come back to it, but I want to say, I really do think that, and I'm just not, putting you over and blowing smoke because you're my friend, but I really do think that the experience that you bring and add to shows, helps out. I would have you on every show. You're invited on every show anyway. It's just, just imagine of making the schedule work out, and then the summer comes, we just talked about that, but I really do think that you got a nice little, niche here in the market, and nobody else is doing this, and like I said, I just love to hear that it's branching out, and you having these 500 cookie orders on from corporate and stuff, so from corporations and stuff. So, but that's super cool. So, but I just wanted to say that a lot of just a lot of people you bring a lot to our shows at Iron Spirit Pro and Dreamwave, and so just kind of want to thank you for what you do if nobody else does.
Thank you so much, Eric. That's very sweet.
All right, let's talk about a little bit about you, fun stuff. So, you used to be a roller derby girl. I know this. I didn't know that you broke your neck. So that was the ending of it, I guess, right?
I broke my jaw, came back for 3 months, and then broke my neck, and determined that I was a big girl now and had to drive myself to work. So, time to be done. I had played for 7 years. I'd gotten out of it. But yeah, that was my life before delving headfirst into wrestling.
All right. So other than wrestling, other than baking, what else does Tori do? What else does Tori like?
Like I said, I'm big in the Humane Society up here. I work with Humane Indiana. I'm on their planning committee. I also work with the Crisis Center. I'm on their planning committee for every event, whatever. And those are really important to me. I have 13 nieces and nephews, so I'm constantly going to softball or baseball or soccer.
Yeah.
I'm also 190 years old, so I'm always crocheting or gardening. And yeah, I mean, I also really enjoy baking for fun, not just for top rope baking. So, two of my friends own a tap room here in town, and any given Sunday, I'm there just making a pie. I really love making pie.
Yeah.
I make a lot of pies to go with like a beer that just recently got untapped.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you ever try like any like super hard recipes, like super fucking hard, just to see if you can pull them off? Like
All the time.
you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to travel a lot when I was in college, and I lived for a year in London. And my host mom was an older lady who loved baking, and so I, recently bought the cookbook that she always cooked stuff out of, or the baking cookbook, whatever. And I've been trying, like, every 2 weeks I try something different, and it's fun to try and get the ingredients because we don't have the same ingredients here that they have there. I also used to do with a couple of my friends. We would bake along with Great British Bake Off.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I have had some flops. Not everything good. There have been some stuff that I've taken a bite of and it went straight in the trash.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of trial and error there. So, wrestler tattoos. You have wrestlers tattoos, right? Like, tell me about them, and
Yeah. So
you don't have to tell me where they are, but you can just Okay, all right, they're all on your leg. So
I'm looking
wrestling tattoo leg.
I'm gonna forget some of them. So my first one was actually a chair, a bent chair with blood on it. Maybe that was my first. Maybe Mick Foley was my first. Anyway, the chair is when I was younger. Again, I watched WCW or ECW all the time, and I thought it was real. And I would go to all these family parties. I have a huge family. There were always folding chairs there, and my family is a little bit ruckus. And so I thought that in my lifetime I was going to see a chair shot in the wild. So it's always been my hope. So there's a chair. Then I have the Mankind logo. I have Bruiser Brody, China, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Razor Ramon Thar. And then my next one will be Woman.
Nice.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. When is that one coming soon?
I don't get tattoos during the summer, so it'll be fall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So your animals. I met Bruiser.
Yeah.
What about the cats have wrestling names too?
Oh yeah, I've got George, Ace, Bigelow, Saito, Mortis, and Crash.
I love Mortis. That's so awesome. That tells you you're totally a WCW girl.
Yeah, I am such a nerd. And then I have a fish named Saturn. So
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely a giant nerd. I've had several people come up to me at wrestling shows when they've never met me before and like, oh, so is your boyfriend into wrestling? And I'm like, oh, friend, let me school you here because I love wrestling.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. Speaking of loving wrestling, what's like, I ain't gonna say like, what's your favorite match of all time, but like, what have you seen live that you were like, man, that's awesome. And it's just kind of stuck with you.
My favorite match is Mankind versus The Rock.
Okay.
My favorite match that I've seen live, oh man, that's really hard. I've seen so many. I think probably 2 or 3 years ago at GCW Art of War, this was back before Mance turned his back on SGC, but there is SGC, Les Mosquitos, oh my god, it was like a 5-team tag match, and it was the end of Art of War game, so it was brutal. Again, ECW, I'm a blood person.
Yeah.
It was amazing, brutal, like absolutely terrifying. People were, losing their minds. It was amazing. It was just really fun because I had front row seats, so I got to be kind of like part of it almost. Like everything was happening so close. Which was amazing and awesome. I don't know. I also feel like just like recently I've seen so many great matches that I'm gonna like as soon as we get off this call, I'm text you like, oh man, I forgot about this really cool," and they're like, I can't believe that. Like, I don't know, I went to the first ever, why can't I think of the name of it, the AEW Forbidden Door show, and like everything on that was amazing. I saw Eddie Kingston at AAW, like
Yeah, amazing.
Teddy Long almost landed on me at an AAW show. Like, I just have seen so much cool wrestling that it's
Yeah,
hard to pick one match.
yeah. My favorite independent wrestling feud, and I think because I got to see a lot of it play out live, was Sammy Callahan and Pentagon Jr.
Oh,
before he was, you know what I mean? So we got to see a lot of that happen at AEW, you know what I mean? So like I just feel like that'll always, you know, kind of stick with me. But so okay, so Mick Foley's number one, I'm assuming,
yep.
all time. Bruiser Brody's in there. Throw a couple out there that's
Mick, Bruiser, China,
dope.
Razor,
Yeah.
probably Stone Cold would be my top 5. I feel like
Yeah.
that. I feel like the Stone Cold position kind of changes, but the rest of them don't really. Also, a huge Kevin Nash fan. Everybody knows that who's ever met me because I never shut up about it.
We've talked about him, yes.
I mean, Big Daddy Diesel. Let's see, some honorable mentions there. I mean, I love the women, like women who were off the cuff. So like Luna Vachon is one of my favorites because she was weird and she was perfect at it. And like even Woman, like what a great character. I also really love like gimmicky wrestling. Like overwhelming gimmicks are kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love Mick Foley. I love Razor Ramon. But just like the more gimmicky wrestling can get, the more I love it. I mean, like one of my favorite shows to go to at all every year is Effie's Big Gay Brunch because just the characters, the pageantry of it, like that's what
Yeah.
about wrestling is the pageantry of wrestling. To me,
Yeah.
it's a show. Like
Yeah.
people are like, oh, I'm gonna go see this wrestling match. I'm like, no, you're going to go see a wrestling show. Like
Mhm.
every
Yeah. Yeah. Give me the pageantry. Give me the pomp and circumstance. You know, I want to feel the goosebumps of the music and what I'm about to see, and you know.
I feel like the music is so important. Like I love seeing like when one of the guys who you see putting up the ring all these times and you see the first time that he gets into the ring that you've seen him and he's got this music and you're like, you need to work on that, or you're like, oh my god, I get that. When
Yeah.
Trevor Outlaw came out to Creed a couple of times ago, oh my god, like the pageantry of it all, it was so
Right.
thing. Like that kind of thing really gets me. Or like the camera guys all waiting for Mance Warner and Silas Young to come out, and they're always like, I hope they never have a match against each other because we're just going to be crouching for 8 minutes. It's
Yep.
perfect.
Right. It really is, man. Like, just there's just so much to it to love, but like I feel like you just have to get it, and then you get it. You know what I mean? Like it's you know, it's the argument of every wrestling fan against every other fan that's not right. So
Right.
um,
It's down to gear. Like when people have new gear, it's so stoked for gear. Like especially the gals. Like when you get new gear and it is amazing, I'm always like, yes, queen. That's exactly what wrestling should be. It should be so much pageantry.
yeah, or like when things are done different with their entrances. Like I love that Hartenbauer's cutting out the music and walking to Johnny Cash now to the ring, and you know I love Brittany Brooks at the last show. She had those little girls come out with her this time with the towels. Like it's fucking perfect, right? Like
So cool. When we were downstairs afterward, one of the little girls was there talking to her, and I was like, "Oh my god, did you just walk out with Brittany Brooks?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Could I have your autograph?" And her dad like looked at me like I had met the girl's whole life, and I was like, "It's not gonna hurt me to get this girl's autograph," but she was so excited.
yeah, man, it's so awesome. All right, so let's talk about I know you got other things. We'll talk about your other shows first, but you're going to be at my show, our show, Iron Spirit Pro, Saturday, May the 11th at the Community Center in Normal, Illinois. Main event just got announced. Craig Mitchell, who you're a big fan of, is putting the Iron Spirit Pro title on the line against Dustin Mosley. You know, this is the last show in Normal at that's Community Center for the season, but this is also the last show before our big, huge show of the year, which is always the big summer show, July the 20th, at the Station Saloon in Bloomington, Illinois. When I say this is our biggest show of the year, this is what we're leading up to. This is our mania, just to kind of pinpoint, let you know what we're doing. But but this Saturday or this coming up Saturday, May 11th, we announced the show. Got a few texts. I want to know if Tori's going to be there. Yes, Tori's coming back. She's going to be there May the 11th, back in Normal. So, it's always bittersweet, kind of, like when we're in this building in the middle of winter, I'm like, it just feels like we're going to have so many more shows there before we hit that summer schedule. But now, May being the last show of the season, and then we're going to go for the summer. It's kind of like a little bittersweet, but this is going to be a pretty big show. If you're familiar with the Midwest scene at all, like every match that has Davey Bang and August Matthews in it is going to be very, very interesting, and they're going for the Iron Spirit Pro Tag titles on May 11th. So another reason to be there. So,
which is kill me. So I've got Sean and I've got Bang and Matthews. Like,
yep.
Who do I cheer for? I don't even know.
Well, that matchup does make it tough, but Tori's definitely going to be there May the 11th. But where else you going to be, Tori? You probably got a weekend of some shows coming up before then. So, what you got coming up?
Yeah, I have 01 in Decatur for their War Games match this weekend.
That's at the Civic Center too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Okay. Super excited about that one. I actually played roller derby there, so it'll be cool to see a wrestling ring set up there. And then I have Iron Spirit Pro, and then the weekend after is Bird Show. Then my grandpa's 80th birthday party, so I'm not doing anything that weekend. And then the next show that I have after that is June 15th, Dreamwave. And then June 22nd is Third Coast. And June 29th is the Heated Shenanigans show for... I can't remember I'm totally blanking on what it's benefiting, but it's a benefit show. And also, backtrack one, June 23rd is a show in conjunction with 01, and one of their wrestlers is actually doing a show for a benefit show as well, and that will also be in Decatur.
Nice. Yeah, so you got some busy times, busy summers coming up. So next Dreamwave show is not till June the 15th. This will just be a single show, and then when we circle back in August, it'll be time for another Uprising show, and then another Dreamwave show after. But I always look forward to Dreamwave, especially when you and I and Dylan are in town. I always look forward to our breakfasts that we have now, that I hope never stop and kind of become a tradition. So shout out to Dylan, by the way. So we got Dreamwave coming up again in June the 15th. Excited for that one. It seems like every show gets a little bit bigger, a little bit more interesting. The storylines are coming together, so I'm excited for it. One thing I love about Dreamwave 2 is and this is probably kind of cool for you too, like everything happens before the show and after the show. There's no intermission now. Yeah. So you kind of get to watch the whole show basically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Always in back. Always asking Jay, you need anything? Mm-hmm. On your thigh sort of situation. But no, Dreamwave is the best. It's so fun. They have such good storylines, and it's so fun because even if you are kind of in the know, you have the call sheet, there's still surprises, and just their booking is really, really phenomenal. And same thing with Iron Spirit. Like, I'm very excited to see Craig with the title. Love Craig, but I love seeing some of those guys. I love that we're pulling in some newer folks with Justin. That's awesome to see, and I'm glad that I'm gonna struggle with not calling them the Bang Bros.
I struggle to make sure I don't say that on the microphone,
Yeah, I could never, but I'm always so excited to see new people, different matchups, like the matchup with Trevor Outlaw and Dante Leone. I don't even know how that's gonna work, but I'm excited to be there for it.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one too. So if you're watching right now on YouTube, thank you so much. But I have a couple of Tori's social media tags on the screen. But if not, everybody listening right now, Tori, can you tell everybody where to find you on your social medias?
Yeah, Instagram is top_rope_baking. Twitter is @topropebaking. And then Facebook is just Top Rope Baking LLC. You can also always email me at topropebaking@gmail.com.
Thank you for taking the time to come hang out with us. I mean, and I want to say thank you to, you've been a supporter of the podcast since, basically we've known you. So thank you for that much and listening and tagging us and, that kind of stuff. So I want to thank you so much for that. And thanks for coming on today. It's a pleasure to get to see you at shows. It's a pleasure to, be able to, I'm gonna put it in quotation marks, work with you, when we're at these shows and stuff. So, but it's more of a blessing to know you because you're a good human being. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for keeping me company while I'm baking and always helping me bring my stuff in and out of shows. You are truly a blessing, and you are part of the Top Rope Baking working group.
All right. I appreciate it. All right. That's going to do it for Tori from Top Rope Baking. I'm DB from the Sit Down Mark podcast. We're going to be back in just a couple weeks. We got to still talk about AEW Dynasty yet coming up. And then we're going to talk about what's happening with WWE Backlash coming up in France, which is actually going on this weekend. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time. Later.